Story 1. The delivery that never ended. Marcus had been hauling freight for 23 years and he'd seen it all, or so he thought. This was supposed to be his final run before retirement, a simple overnight delivery from Tulsa to a warehouse in nowhere, Nebraska. The pay was triple the usual rate, which should have been his first warning sign, but Marcus figured some rich company needed their goods fast and didn't mind paying premium. He'd take the money, complete this last job, and wake up tomorrow as a free man. The dispatcher had been oddly specific about the route. No highways, only County Road 47 straight through the farmland. Marcus didn't question it. He'd driven stranger routes for stranger reasons. His rig, a Kenworth T680 he'd named Big Sally, was loaded with unmarked crates. The manifest listed them as industrial equipment, nothing unusual. He fired up the engine at 11:47 p.m., the rumble of familiar comfort, and pulled onto the dark country road. The first hour was normal. Flat fields stretched endlessly on both sides, occasionally interrupted by a dilapidated barn or a farmhouse with all the lights off. His CB radio played nothing but static, but that wasn't uncommon this far from civilization. Marcus sipped his lukewarm coffee and watched the mile markers tick by. Mile 12. Mile 15, mile 19. The numbers climbed steadily as he pushed Big Sally through the darkness. Then he passed mile marker 23, and 5 minutes later he passed mile marker 23 again. Marcus blinked, assuming he'd misread it. Fatigue could play tricks on your eyes, but when he saw mile marker 23 for the third time, his hands tightened on the wheel. He checked his GPS, but the screen showed nothing except a gray void. No roads, no towns, just empty space where his location should be. His phone had no signal. The clock on his dashboard read 1:13 a.m., same as it had for the past 20 minutes. He kept driving. What else could he do? The road looked identical in every direction, straight, narrow, surrounded by those endless dark fields. He tried the CB radio again, cycling through channels. Nothing but static except on channel 19, where he heard what sounded like his own voice calling for help. The words were too distorted to understand, but the panicked tone made his skin crawl. He shut off the radio. Mile marker 23 appeared again and again. Marcus started counting. By the 8th time passing the same marker, he noticed something else. There was a scarecrow in one of the fields, visible in his headlights about 200 yards out. Each time he completed the loop, and he was certain now it was a loop, the scarecrow was closer to the road. Not by much. Maybe 10 or 15 yards each time, but definitely closer. He tried to turn around, but the road wouldn't let him. When he attempted a U-turn, his steering wheel spun freely, as if disconnected from the wheels. Big Sally continued forward on her own, maintaining a steady 55 miles per hour no matter what Marcus did with the pedals. The engine rumbled on, indifferent to his commands. He was a passenger now in his own truck. By the 15th loop, the scarecrow stood at the edge of the road. Marcus could see it clearly in his headlights as he approached mile marker 23. It wasn't a scarecrow. The thing had the basic shape, a cross-shaped frame with a burlap sack for a head. But it was too tall, at least 9 feet, and its arms were too long, hanging down past where knees should be. The burlap face had no features except for holes. Not cut holes, but holes that seemed to lead somewhere deep and dark. Marcus didn't want to look at it, but every time he passed, his head turned involuntarily. The thing never moved, yet each loop it faced a different direction, always watching his truck roll by. On the 21st loop, he realized it wasn't standing anymore. It was closer to the road, leaning forward at an impossible angle, as if gravity had changed just for it. The temperature inside the cab began to drop. Marcus could see his breath. Frost spread across the inside of his windshield in patterns that looked disturbingly like handprints. The radio turned itself back on, and this time he clearly heard his own voice. "Please, someone help me. I've been driving for hours. I keep passing the same place. There's something in the field. It's getting closer. If anyone can hear this, send help to County Road 47, please." but Marcus wasn't transmitting. His radio mic hung unused on its hook. He was hearing himself from somewhere else, some other version of this loop, some other Marcus who had already been trapped here. How many? How many times had he done this? How many versions of himself were stuck on this road? The scarecrow thing was in the road now. On loop 34, there it stood, directly in his path, those two long arms spread wide. Marcus screamed and braced for impact, but Big Sally drove straight through it as if it wasn't there. In that moment of passing through, Marcus saw what was inside the burlap sack. Faces. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all pressed against the interior of the fabric, screaming silently, their mouths and eyes distorting the burlap into a nightmare of human features trying to break free. He recognized some of those faces. Other drivers. He'd seen their missing person reports at truck stops over the years. Randy Morrison disappeared in 2007. The Rodriguez brothers vanished in 2012. Sarah Chen last seen in 2019. All of them were in there, trapped inside that thing, and they were looking at him with such desperate pleading that Marcus felt something break inside his mind. After that, he stopped counting the loops. Time lost all meaning. The clock still read 1:13 a.m. The mile marker still read 23. The thing still stood in the road, and each time Marcus drove through it, he saw those faces more clearly, recognized more drivers, saw the absolute despair in their eyes. He tried everything. He tried closing his eyes, the truck drove on. He tried throwing himself from the cab, the door wouldn't open. He tried smashing the windshield, his fists bounced off the glass like it was made of rubber. Eventually, Marcus stopped trying. He just drove, hands on the wheel out of habit, watching mile marker 23 approach and recede, approach and recede. The thing in the road never moved, never changed, except that its burlap face seemed to sag a little more each loop, weighted down by the addition of new faces pressing from within. He didn't notice when it happened, couldn't say which loop it was, but at some point Marcus realized he could see his own face in there, pressed against the burlap alongside all the others, his mouth open in a scream he could hear echoing through the static on the CB radio. He looked down at his hands on the wheel and saw they were becoming translucent, fading like an old photograph left in the sun. The last thing Marcus remembered as himself was a new driver, someone he'd never seen before, pulling onto County Road 47 in a Peterbilt, headed for that triple-rate delivery to nowhere, Nebraska. The new guy looked confident, experienced, ready for his last run before retirement. Marcus tried to warn him through the CB radio, but his voice was just more static now, indistinguishable from all the other trapped drivers trying to scream their warnings into the void. Big Sally rolled on, driverless now, her engine rumbling steadily at mile marker 23, waiting for the next loop, the next driver, the next face to add to the collection. Somewhere in a Tulsa dispatch office, another offer for a triple-rate overnight delivery was being posted, and another driver was thinking about how this would be the perfect last job before quitting. The road always needed more drivers. It would never let them quit. Story 2. The Backwards Mile. Denise had driven for Werner Enterprises for 16 years, and she'd finally had enough. The long hours, the loneliness, the constant pressure to make impossible delivery times, it all weighed on her like a physical burden. She de-typed her resignation letter 3 times but never sent it. This delivery would be different. She decided that the moment she finished this run from Phoenix to a distribution center outside of Kingman, she'd park her Freightliner Cascadia, walk into the office and quit face to face. No more delays, no more second-guessing. The load was nothing special. Consumer electronics, fairly lightweight, easy handling. She left Phoenix at 10:30 p.m., planning to arrive by 3:00 a.m. Highway 93 stretched out before her, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the Arizona desert. The night was clear, stars brilliant overhead, the kind of night that reminded her why she'd loved this job once, before the corporate greed and regulated sleep schedules had sucked the romance out of it. Around midnight, she noticed the headlights behind her. Another truck keeping pace about a quarter mile back. Nothing unusual about that. Plenty of drivers ran this route at night to avoid the desert heat, but something about those headlights bothered her. They looked old-fashioned, too yellow, too wide-set, like something from a truck built in the 70s or 80s. Denise was passing the 71-mile marker when her truck stuttered. Not the engine. The whole vehicle seemed to hiccup like a DVD skipping. The desert blurred for a fraction of a second, and then everything was normal again. She checked her mirrors. The vintage truck was still behind her, same distance, same speed. Her dashboard clock read 12:47 a.m. Then she passed the 71-mile marker again. She definitely hadn't turned around. The road was straight as a ruler through this stretch, no exits, no turnoffs. But there was the marker clear in her headlights, 71. Denise felt a cold spike of adrenaline. She pressed the accelerator, pushing her Cascadia up to 75, then 80. The mile markers should have been flying by, but when the next one appeared, it read 71. The vintage truck behind her maintained its distance effortlessly, despite her speed increase. Those old yellow headlights never got closer, never fell behind. Denise grabbed her CB mic with a shaking hand. "This is westbound freight on 93, anyone copy? I'm having some kind of situation at mile marker 71. Can anyone hear me?" A voice crackled back immediately, female, with an accent Denise couldn't place. "Copy that westbound. What's your 20? Mile marker 71, Highway 93, but I keep passing the same marker. Something's wrong with my mile marker 71, the voice interrupted, and Denise realized it was repeating her exact words in her exact tone. Highway 93, but I keep passing the same marker. Something's wrong with my... Denise dropped the mic. The voice on the radio continued, playing back her words on a loop, but each repetition sounded more distorted, more wrong, until it didn't sound human anymore. She shut off the CB. She tried her phone. No signal, which was impossible. This section of highway had coverage from 2 different carriers. She demade calls from this exact stretch dozens of times. The screen showed no bars, no network name, nothing. When she looked at the time on her phone, it read 12:47 a.m. Same as her truck's clock, same as it had been for the past several minutes. The 71-mile marker appeared again, and again. Denise started watching the desert on both sides of the road, looking for landmarks, anything to confirm whether she was actually moving or just stuck in some kind of loop. She spotted a distinctive rock formation on the right side, 3 tall stones leaning against each other like giants' fingers. She watched it as she drove. The rock formation appeared every time she passed mile marker 71, but each time it was different, subtly different. The first time it was on the right side of the road. The second time it seemed taller. The third time there were 4 stones instead of 3. The fourth time the stones were bent at wrong angles, defying physics. The 5th time the stones were moving, slowly rearranging themselves like pieces on a chessboard. The vintage truck behind her never changed. Same distance, same yellow headlights, same steady presence. Denise tried slamming her brakes, hoping to force it to pass her or reveal itself somehow. Her Cascadia slowed obediently, but when she checked her speedometer, it still read 80. The sensation of movement didn't change. The wind noise didn't decrease. And in her mirror, that old truck stayed exactly where it had been, as if her braking had never happened. After the 20th loop, she was counting now, scratching marks on her notepad with each pass of the marker. Denise noticed something new. There was a figure standing beside the highway, just a silhouette in her headlights, too far away to see clearly. Human-shaped but wrong proportions. Too tall and too thin, with arms that hung down to its knees. Each loop, the figure was closer to the road. Not walking, just occupying a different position each time she came around, like a character in a flip book animation. By loop 25, Denise could see it more clearly. It wore what looked like a trucker's jacket and cap, but the clothes hung on its frame like they were draped over a coat rack. The head tilted at an angle that would have broken a normal person's neck. Loop 30, and the thing stood at the road's edge. Denise could see its face now, or where a face should be. Instead, there was just smooth, dark emptiness, like looking into a hole cut in reality. As her truck passed, the thing raised one of those two long arms and pointed at the vintage truck behind her. Denise looked in her side mirror, really looked at the truck following her for the first time. In the weird, timeless light of this place, she could see it clearly now. A 1970s-era Kenworth, the kind her father had driven when she was a kid. But the details were wrong. The chrome was tarnished black. The windshield was dark, not just tinted but absolutely lightless, as if the cab contained a piece of void. And painted on the door in letters that seemed to shift and crawl was a company name, Night Haulers. She'd heard stories about night haulers, every trucker had. They were ghost stories, legends told at truck stops at 3 a.m. when the coffee was burnt and the pie was stale. Trucks that appeared on lonely highways, following solo drivers, shepherding them toward what? No one knew. No one who'd been followed by a night hauler had ever come back to tell the story. Until now, Denise had thought they were just stories. Loop 47. The figure was in the road now, standing directly in Denise's path at mile marker 71. She was going to hit it. She braced herself, but at the moment of impact, everything stopped. Not froze, stopped. The engine noise cut out. The wind noise vanished. The sensation of movement ceased. Denise sat in absolute silence in her cab, still gripping the wheel, the figure directly in front of her truck, so close she could have touched it through the windshield. It leaned forward, bringing that empty face closer to the glass. When it spoke, Denise heard the words not through her ears but directly in her mind, each syllable a cold spike of understanding. You wanted to quit. You wanted this to be your last delivery. Wishes have power on the night roads. We grant them. This is your last mile. You'll drive it forever. No more deliveries after this. No more tomorrow, just this, just us, just the road. Then time started again. The figure was gone. Mile marker 71 approached once more. The vintage night hauler truck stayed constant in her mirror. And Denise understood with perfect, horrible clarity that she would never finish this delivery. She would never get to Kingman. She would never walk into that office and quit. She would drive this single mile of Highway 93 for eternity, or until the night haulers found another driver who wanted their last delivery to truly be their last. She'd quit all right, quit everything, quit the world, quit time itself. The 71-mile marker passed by once more. The clock still read 12:47 a.m. The stars overhead had stopped moving. And behind her, patient and eternal, those yellow headlights followed, shepherding her through the mile that never ended, granting the wish she should never have made. Somewhere ahead, always ahead, the 72-mile marker existed. Denise could feel it just out of reach, a promise of continuation, but she would never see it. The backwards mile had claimed her, and the night haulers always collected what they were owed. Story 3. The Empty Diner. Raymond checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. 2:17 a.m. Just over an hour left on this delivery, and then he was done. Finished. He had the resignation paperwork already filled out in his sleeper berth, ready to hand over to the fleet manager in the morning. 31 years of hauling freight, and it was all coming to an end tonight. His daughter's wedding was in 2 weeks, and he'd promised himself he wouldn't miss another family event. This life had cost him too much already. The delivery was routine. Frozen foods from a distribution center in Wichita to a grocery chain warehouse in Russell, Kansas. Highway 281 stretched out before him, dark and quiet. His Volvo VNL hummed along reliably, the refrigeration unit maintaining a steady -10 degrees. Everything was going according to plan. Then he saw the diner. It appeared suddenly on the right side of the highway, a classic chrome and neon structure that seemed to materialize out of the darkness. The sign read "Last Stop Diner" in bright blue neon, and every window blazed with warm yellow light. Raymond frowned. He'd driven this route hundreds of times over the years. There was no diner here. The nearest anything was a gas station 20 miles back, but his stomach growled, reminding him he'd skipped dinner. And there it was, undeniably real, with a parking lot and everything. He could even see the outline of booths through the windows. Raymond signaled and pulled off the highway, telling himself this was a nice surprise, a convenient place to grab coffee and maybe a sandwich before the final push. The parking lot was empty except for a single car, a vintage Chevrolet Bel Air that looked like it had driven straight out of 1957. Raymond parked his truck and climbed down from the cab, his boots crunching on the gravel. The night air was cold and still. No wind, no sounds of traffic, no distant lights of farmhouses. Just the diner glowing like a beacon in the void. A bell chimed as he pushed open the door. The interior was perfect, too perfect. Chrome bar stools lined a counter, red vinyl booths marched along the windows, black and white checkered tiles gleamed on the floor. A jukebox in the corner played something from the 50s, the music tinny and distant. The smell of coffee and frying bacon filled the air, but there was no one there. "Hello," Raymond called out. His voice sounded flat, absorbed by the space. No one answered. He walked further inside, his boots squeaking on the clean tiles. The coffee pot on the burner was full and steaming. Plates of food sat on the counter, eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast, still hot, still fresh, as if someone had just plated them and walked away. Raymond approached the counter slowly. One of the plates had steam rising from it. He reached out and touched the eggs with one finger. Warm, real. He looked around again. "Anyone here? I'd like to pay for some coffee." Movement in the corner of his eye. He spun around, but it was just his reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser. Except his reflection was wrong. It showed him sitting at the counter, eating from one of those plates, even though Raymond was standing near the door. He blinked and looked again. Normal reflection now. Just him, standing, looking confused and tired. A door behind the counter led to what he assumed was the kitchen. Raymond walked over and pushed it open. The kitchen was as perfect and empty as the dining area. Grills clean to a mirror shine, stainless steel prep surfaces empty, everything in its place. But pots bubbled on the stove and the fryers were on, oil shimmering at the perfect temperature. Someone had been cooking. Someone might still be cooking. "This isn't right," Raymond muttered. He turned to leave and nearly screamed. There was a waitress standing by the counter now, as if she'd been there all along. She wore a classic pink uniform with a white apron, her hair in a neat bun, a notepad in her hand. She was smiling, but her eyes were wrong, too wide, too fixed, like a doll's eyes. "Coffee, hun?" she asked. Her voice sounded normal, friendly, exactly what you'd expect from a diner waitress. But her mouth didn't quite match the words, like a poorly dubbed movie. Yeah, coffee would be good," Raymond said, trying to calm his racing heart. "I didn't see you come in." "I've been here the whole time," she said, already pouring coffee into a white ceramic mug. "Everyone stops here eventually. Last Stop Diner, right there in the name." She laughed, a sound like wind chimes made of glass. Raymond sat at the counter because he didn't know what else to do. The coffee appeared in front of him, dark and aromatic. He wrapped his hands around the mug, grateful for the warmth. "I've driven this highway for years, never seen this place before." "You've never been ready to quit before," the waitress said, still smiling. "The last stop only appears for drivers on their last run. You are on your last run, aren't you, Raymond?" Ice flooded his veins. "How do you know my name?" She gestured at his chest. He looked down, his name tag, of course. He was wearing his company shirt with RAYMOND stitched above the pocket. Perfectly logical explanation. So why did it feel like she'd known before looking? "What can I get you?" she asked, pen poised over her notepad. "We have everything, anything you want, on the house, for drivers finishing their last delivery." Raymond realized he was very hungry and those plates of food looked perfect. "I'll take the eggs and bacon, over easy." "One last meal," the waitress said, writing on her pad. Coming right up. She turned toward the kitchen, but Raymond didn't see her walk. She was at the counter, and then she was through the kitchen door, no transition between. He drank his coffee. It was the best coffee he'd ever tasted, rich and complex and exactly the temperature he liked. He looked around the diner again. Everything was still perfect, too perfect. The music from the jukebox repeated the same 10 seconds over and over. The clock on the wall showed 2:17 a.m., the second hand ticking but the minute hand never moving. The waitress returned with his food. Again, no walking. Just there, then here, placing the plate in front of him. "Enjoy your last meal," she said. "Why do you keep saying it like that?" Raymond asked. "Last stop, last run, last meal. You're making it sound ominous." Her smile widened. Her teeth were too white, too perfect, and there were too many of them. "Because it is your last, Raymond. You made the choice. You decided tonight would be your final delivery. You wrote up your resignation. You told yourself this was it, the end of the road. The last stop honors those decisions, makes them permanent." Raymond pushed his plate away, no longer hungry. "What are you talking about? I'm quitting my job, not dying." "Aren't you?" The waitress tilted her head at an angle that was almost natural but not quite. "Every driver who stops here is on their last run, and every last run ends here. You can't quit the road, Raymond. The road doesn't let you go. You either die out there or you stop here. Same difference, really." He stood up abruptly, the stool scraping against the floor with a sound like a scream. "I'm leaving." "No, you're not." Her voice didn't change, still friendly, still warm. "Look outside." Raymond turned to the windows. The parking lot was gone. Where his truck should have been, where the highway should have been, there was nothing, just darkness. Not night darkness, not the darkness of an empty field. Absolute void, like looking into the space between stars. "What did you do?" His voice cracked. "I didn't do anything. You did this. You wanted off the road. You wanted it to end. The last stop heard you." We always hear the drivers who want to quit, and we give them what they want. No more deliveries, no more miles, no more highway, just this, forever. Raymond ran to the door and pulled it open. The void was right there, inches from the threshold. He could feel it, a cold that went deeper than temperature, an emptiness that pulled at him like gravity. He slammed the door shut and backed away. "How many?" he asked, turning to face the waitress. "How many drivers are here?" She gestured around the empty diner. "All of them, can't you see? They're all here, Raymond. Every driver who ever wanted to quit, every last run that ended with us." Raymond looked again at the empty booths, the vacant stools. But this time, in the chrome surfaces, in the reflection of the windows, in the polished coffee pot, he saw them. Hundreds of drivers. Thousands. All sitting, all eating, all frozen in mid-motion like photographs. Some wore clothes from the 50s, some from the 80s, some from last year. All of them trapped in their last meal, their last stop, their last moment. He saw himself reflected in every surface now, dozens of Raymonds all sitting at the counter, all eating eggs and bacon, all stopped mid-bite for eternity. "Sit down and eat," the waitress said gently. "Fighting it just makes it harder. This is what you wanted. No more lonely highways. No more missed birthdays and weddings. No more pain of separation from family. Here you're safe from all that. Here the road never ends, but you never have to drive it either. You're home." "This isn't home." Raymond's voice was barely a whisper. "Everywhere is home to a trucker eventually. You've spent more nights in your cab than in any house, more hours on the highway than anywhere else. The road is your home, and this is where the road ends. The last stop." Raymond felt himself moving toward the counter, though he didn't want to. His legs carried him there. He sat down, he picked up his fork. The waitress refilled his coffee, still smiling. "That's it," she said. "Just relax, eat your meal. It's the last one you'll ever need. The last meal for the last delivery. When you're done, you'll understand. They all understand eventually." He tried to resist, but the fork moved to the plate. The eggs did smell good, and he was so tired. 31 years of driving had exhausted him down to his bones. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was where he belonged. Not at his daughter's wedding, not in some retirement community, but here, in the place between roads, the last stop before nothing. The food touched his lips. It tasted like everything he'd ever loved: his mother's cooking, his wife's Sunday roasts, the first meal he'd eaten at a truck stop 40 years ago when he was young, and the world was full of endless highway. It tasted like memory and promise and regret all mixed together. As he swallowed, he felt himself becoming less. Not dying, but fading, becoming reflection instead of substance, becoming one of the 1,000 frozen drivers in the chrome and glass. His hand moved for another bite. The waitress hummed along with the jukebox. The clock still read 2:17 a.m. and always would. Outside in the void, Highway 281 continued on without him. His Volvo VNL sat abandoned on the shoulder, flashers blinking, refrigeration unit still running, keeping the frozen food at -10 degrees. Eventually, someone would find it. They'd wonder what happened to the driver. They'd search the area and find nothing. No diner, no last stop, just empty highway. The resignation paperwork in his sleeper berth would never be filed. Raymond had quit all right, permanently. In the last stop diner, another driver would arrive soon. Someone else on their final run, ready to stop driving forever. The waitress would greet them with her perfect smile and offer coffee. The jukebox would play. The food would always be hot. And Raymond would sit at the counter forever, fork raised, eggs steaming, the best and last meal he would ever taste, stretching out into eternity, one bite at a time, never finishing, never leaving, never free. The road had claimed him in the only way it knew how, by stopping him right when he decided to quit. The last stop diner always honored a driver's final decision. Story 4. The Reverse Convoy. Angela had made peace with her decision. After 18 years of long-haul trucking, she was done. Her International Pro Star had served her well, but tonight's delivery from Omaha to Des Moines would be the last time she'd climb into that cab. She'd already accepted a dispatcher position with a local company. Home every night, weekends off, a normal life. This overnight run was just a formality, a final goodbye to the highway. The load was agricultural equipment parts, nothing complicated. She left Omaha at 11:45 p.m., rolling north on I-29 before cutting east on 680. The night was overcast, thick clouds blocking the moon and stars. Traffic was light, just a few other trucks and the occasional car. Angela had her playlist going, classic rock from the 70s, singing along to Fleetwood Mac and feeling oddly nostalgic already. Around 12:30 a.m., she noticed the convoy forming behind her. 3 trucks, all running in tight formation, closer than was safe or legal. They appeared suddenly in her mirrors, as if they'd materialized out of nowhere. The lead truck was a vintage Peterbilt 359, the kind with the long nose and big chrome grille. Behind it, 2 more, a Kenworth and a Freightliner, both old models from the 80s. Angela frowned and eased her speed up a bit, giving them room to pass. But they matched her speed exactly, maintaining their formation. She tried slowing down. They slowed down. She changed lanes. They changed lanes. They were following her deliberately. She grabbed her CB radio. "This is northbound Pro Star to the convoy behind me. You guys running a little tight there. Need to pass," Static answered her. Then through the crackle, a voice, male, middle-aged, with an accent she couldn't place. "Negative, Pro Star. We're right where we need to be, just following you home." "I'm not going home," Angela replied. "I'm headed to Des Moines." "Your last run," the voice said. "We always escort the drivers on their last run, make sure they get where they're going." Angela's hands tightened on the wheel. "How do you know this is my last run?" "We know. We always know. Been doing this for a long time." "Longer than you've been alive, probably. When a driver decides to quit, when they're on that final delivery, we come out. Make sure they finish. Make sure they complete their last trip. It's tradition." There was something wrong with his voice. It sounded friendly enough, but underneath there was an echo, like he was speaking from inside a tunnel. Angela checked her mirrors again. The 3 trucks behind her were maintaining perfect formation, their headlights creating strange patterns in the darkness. "I appreciate the thought," Angela said, trying to keep her voice steady, "but I don't need an escort. I've been driving these roads for 18 years. "Exactly," the voice crackled back. 18 years, that's a long time, long enough to owe a debt to the highway. We're here to help you pay it." Angela didn't like the sound of that. "I don't owe the highway anything. I paid for every gallon of fuel, every toll, every permit. I'm square." Laughter came through the CB, hollow and wrong. "Not that kind of debt, Pro Star. The road takes from you time, family, relationships, pieces of your soul, but it also gives purpose, identity, direction. When you've driven as long as you have, you become part of the road, and the road doesn't like to let go of its own." Angela turned off the CB. Her heart was hammering now. She checked her GPS. 73 miles to Des Moines. She could make it. Just keep driving, ignore the weird convoy, finish the delivery, and never look back. But when she glanced at her mirrors again, there were more trucks. The convoy had grown. 6 trucks now, then 8, then a dozen. All vintage models, all running in perfect formation, all following her International Pro Star through the Iowa night. Their headlights reflected off her mirrors in a pattern that hurt to look at, geometric and wrong, angles that shouldn't exist. She tried to speed up, pushing her truck to 75, then 80. The convoy matched her effortlessly. She tried to exit, saw a sign for a rest stop 2 miles ahead. But when she signaled and started to merge toward the exit ramp, her steering wheel jerked back, hard, pulling her back into the driving lane. Her truck wouldn't let her leave the highway. Angela tried the wheel again, pulling hard to the right. It was like fighting against power steering that had reversed itself. The truck actively resisted, forcing her to stay on I-80, heading east toward Des Moines with that impossible convoy behind her. The CB turned itself back on. Different voices now, multiple drivers all speaking at once, their words overlapping. "Last run, complete the delivery, pay the debt, road calls us all, 1 more mile, just 1 more, always 1 more." She punched the power button. The radio went silent, but the voices continued, coming from the speakers even with the unit off. Angela grabbed the CB and ripped it from its mount, letting it dangle by its wires. The voices got louder. In her mirrors, the convoy had grown to 20 trucks, then 30. They filled the highway behind her, an army of chrome and steel, all running in perfect synchronization, and they were getting closer. The gap between Angela and the lead Peterbilt was shrinking. She could see the driver now, just a silhouette in the windshield, too thin and too still. Mile marker 58. The sign flashed by. Then mile marker 57. Angela was counting now, measuring her escape in diminishing numbers. 56. 55. Each marker was a small victory, a step closer to finishing this nightmare delivery. Then she passed mile marker 55 again, and again. No, not this. Angela had heard stories about loops, about drivers trapped on endless stretches of highway, repeating the same miles forever. But those were just stories. Urban legends told at truck stops to scare rookies. But mile marker 55 kept appearing, and the convoy kept growing. 50 trucks now, 100 more than should be able to fit on the highway. They stretched back into the darkness as far as Angela could see, an infinite procession of vehicles that shouldn't exist. The lead Peterbilt was right behind her now, close enough that she could see it had no license plate. Where the plate should be, there was just smooth metal. The driver's silhouette was clearer too, and Angela wished it was. Too many joints in the arms, too many angles in the neck. Not human, never human. Mile marker 55. Again. Again. Angela was screaming now, both hands on the wheel, foot pressing the accelerator to the floor even though her speed never changed. The convoy surrounded her, trucks pulling alongside, matching her exactly. She was in the center of a rolling formation, boxed in on all sides by impossible vehicles driven by impossible things. One of the trucks alongside her, a Mack from the 70s, had windows she could see through. There was a driver inside, and it took Angela a moment to recognize the uniform. It was her uniform, the same company shirt she was wearing, and the driver was her, or had been her. The face was right but aged, weathered, with eyes that had gone dead somewhere along the way. She looked to the other side. Another truck, another version of herself. Older, younger, different but same. All of them trapped in their cabs, all of them driving mile marker 55 forever, all of them caught in their last delivery that would never end. This is what happens when you quit. The voice came through her dead CB, through her radio speakers, through the very air in her cab. You become what you tried to leave. The road owns you. Your last run becomes your only run. You drive it forever. Welcome to the convoy, Angela. Welcome to the eternal delivery. You're one of us now. Angela looked ahead. The highway stretched into infinity, the same stretch of asphalt repeating endlessly. Mile marker 55, over and over. And she understood that she would never reach Des Moines, would never complete this delivery, would never file that resignation paperwork. She was the resignation. She dequit the road by becoming part of it permanently. The convoy closed in tighter. The other Angelas in their other trucks all turned to look at her, their expressions empty, their eyes reflecting headlights like animals caught in the dark. They'd all made the same decision once. All chosen their last run. All ended up here. Somewhere far away, someone would find Angela's International Pro Star abandoned on I-80, engine still running, cargo intact, driver vanished. They de-search and find nothing. Another mystery, another missing trucker. But Angela wasn't missing. She was right here at mile marker 55, driving forever in the convoy that escorted drivers on their last runs and never let them finish. The road had her now. The reverse convoy had claimed another driver who dared to quit, and mile marker 55 rolled by again and again and again forever. Story 5, the station that wasn't there. Derek had counted down the days, then the hours, and now he was counting miles. 42 miles left on his final delivery, from Little Rock to a distribution center in Pine Bluff. His Mac Anthem was running smooth, the load of automotive parts secured and stable. At 1:30 a.m. he'd finish this run, park the truck, and walk away from 18 years of highway driving. His wife had given him an ultimatum 6 months ago, the road or the marriage. Derek chose the marriage. Tonight was where it all ended. The fuel gauge caught his attention. Quarter tank. Normally he'd push through to his destination, but running out of diesel on his final run would be pathetic. He saw a sign, gas food lodging next exit. Highway 65 didn't have many services this late at night. Better to stop now. Derek took the exit and followed the ramp down into what should have been a typical truck stop area. But the buildings ahead looked wrong. Too old. The gas station was a vintage structure from the 50s, complete with round globe pumps and a neon sign that flickered roadside fuel and service. The attached diner had chrome siding and a roof shaped like a flying saucer. Derek had never seen this place before, and he'd driven this route dozens of times. But fuel was fuel. He pulled up to the diesel pumps, noting that they were the old mechanical kind, with spinning number wheels instead of digital displays. The prices were wrong too, $0.89 per gallon. Derek stared at the numbers, trying to make sense of them. A misprint maybe, a broken sign. He climbed down from his cab. The parking lot was empty except for his truck. The lights were all on in the diner and the service station, but he couldn't see anyone inside. The air was weird here, too still, too quiet. No highway noise, even though the interstate was just a few hundred yards away. No insect sounds, no wind, nothing. Derek approached the fuel pump and looked for a credit card reader. There wasn't one, just a mechanical dial and a handwritten sign, prepay inside. He walked toward the station office, his boots crunching on the pavement with sounds that seemed too loud in the silence. The door chimed as he entered. The interior was a perfect recreation of a 1950s service station. Candy bars in glass jars, motor oil in metal cans, road maps hung on a rotating rack. Behind the counter stood an attendant in a period-correct uniform, complete with a bow tie and a cap that said roadside service. The man was smiling, but his face had a waxy quality like a department store mannequin. "Evening driver," the attendant said. His voice was oddly flat like a recording. "How can I help you?" Diesel, fill up, please." Derek reached for his wallet. "Certainly, which pump?" "The one my truck is at. The Mac Anthem." The attendant's smile never wavered. "I'll need you to specify. We have many trucks tonight." Derek turned to look through the window at his truck. His Mac was still there, but it wasn't alone anymore. There were dozens of trucks in the lot now, all parked at pumps, all different makes and models spanning decades. A Peterbilt from the 70s, an International from the 80s, a Freightliner from last year, all of them dark, no drivers visible. "Those weren't there a minute ago," Derek said slowly. "They've always been here," the attendant replied. "Just like you've always been here, just like you'll always be here. This is the station that wasn't there. It only appears for drivers on their last run. You are on your last run, aren't you, Derek?" Derek backed toward the door. "How do you know my name?" "I know all their names." The attendant gestured around the empty station. "Every driver who ever stopped here, every last delivery. They all needed fuel for one more run. Just one more. But the station gives them something else." "I'm leaving." Derek pushed through the door and ran toward his truck, but the parking lot had changed. It stretched out impossibly far now, his Mac getting further away with each step instead of closer. The other trucks surrounded him, and he could see drivers in them now, skeletal figures slumped over steering wheels, hands frozen on controls, mouths open in silent screams. He ran harder, but the distance grew. His Mac was a mile away now, then two, though the lot had looked small when he'd pulled in. Derek spun around. The service station was right behind him, close enough to touch, the attendant standing in the doorway with that unchanging smile. "You can't leave without fuel," the attendant said. "And you can't get fuel without paying. And the price here isn't money, Derek. The price is time. You wanted to quit, to stop driving, to be free of the road. The station that wasn't their grant's wishes. You'll never have to drive again. You'll be here at the pump, forever fueling up for the last run that never comes." Derek ran in a different direction, away from both the station and his truck. But no matter which way he ran, he ended up back at the same spot, facing the attendant. The parking lot was a loop, a trap, a place where physics didn't work right. "Why?" Derek shouted. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you chose to quit," the attendant said patiently. "The road doesn't like quitters. It built this place for them. A station that appears when it's needed, offers what seems helpful, and takes what it's owed. You've given 18 years to the highway. The highway wants more. It always wants more." Derek felt his legs moving against his will, carrying him toward his truck. The Mac was suddenly close again, right there, the fuel nozzle already in the tank. He tried to stop walking but couldn't. His hand reached out and grabbed the pump handle. The diesel began to flow. Derek could hear it, smell it, but the numbers on the pump weren't moving forward. They were counting backward. Gallons pumped, 500, then 1,000, then 10,000. The number spun wildly, impossibly, filling his tank with more fuel than could ever fit, filling it with something else, something that wasn't diesel at all. He looked down at his hand on the pump. It was changing, becoming translucent, fading like old photographs. He was being drained. His time, his life, his substance, all of it flowing in reverse through the pump, feeding the station, feeding the road. Other drivers appeared around him, emerging from their trucks like ghosts. They walked in slow procession toward the station, all holding pump handles, all fading. They'd all stopped here, all needed fuel, all paid the price. Derek tried to scream, but his voice was draining away too. He was becoming a shadow, a memory, a driver-shaped outline of what he'd been. The station that wasn't there was taking everything, payment for the final run he'd never complete. The attendant watched from his doorway, still smiling. "Thank you for stopping," he said. "Your fuel is ready. Have a safe trip." But there would be no trip. Derek was part of the station now, part of the pump, part of the concrete and the air and the eternal midnight that existed in this place between exits. He stopped for fuel and found the only station that charged everything for nothing. His Mac Anthem sat at the pump, tank full, engine silent. Inside the cab, Derek's final delivery paperwork lay on the passenger seat next to an empty coffee cup and a photo of his wife. The truck would never move again. The delivery would never be made. The driver was gone, absorbed into the station that wasn't there, fueling the road's endless hunger. Tomorrow, someone would wonder why Derek never showed up in Pine Bluff. They'd de-search and find nothing. No truck, no driver, no station. Highway 65 would look the same as it always had. Empty exit ramps, dark fields, no services for miles. But late at night, for drivers on their last run, a sign would appear. Gas food lodging next exit. And the station would be there, waiting with its vintage pumps and its smiling attendant, ready to help one more driver quit the road permanently. Derek had wanted to stop driving. The station that wasn't there made sure he never would and never could, trapping him in the eternal moment of fueling up for a journey that would never begin. Story 6. The Phantom Load. Carlos had driven enough to know when something felt wrong. 22 years hauling freight taught you to trust your instincts. But tonight he ignored them. Tonight was special. His absolute last delivery after more than 2 decades on the road. His brother had offered him a partnership in a garage back home in San Antonio. Real stability, real home time, a real life. This run from Houston to Beaumont was just a formality, one final paycheck before retirement. The dispatch had been strange. The load was listed as general freight, but when Carlos arrived at the pickup location, there was no warehouse, just an empty lot with a single trailer sitting under a broken streetlight. The trailer was old, a battered 48-footer with faded paint and rust spots. No company markings, no dot numbers, just bare metal and shadows. Carlos's cab radio crackled. The dispatcher's voice, "Load is ready, hook up and roll, needs to be in Beaumont by 4 a.m. "There's no one here," Carlos replied. "No paperwork, no one to sign off. Paperwork is in the trailer office box. You're running late, hook up now." Against his better judgment, Carlos backed his Peterbilt 579 to the trailer and connected the lines. The landing gear retracted smoothly. The brake lights worked when he tested them. Everything seemed functional, even if the whole situation felt off. He found a manifest in the trailer's document box, but it was strange. Just a single sheet with general freight typed on it and a destination address in Beaumont. No itemized cargo, no weight, no shipper information. Carlos pulled out of the lot at 11:47 p.m. Highway 90 stretched ahead, familiar and dark. He'd run this route hundreds of times. Easy money, he told himself. 250 miles, straight shot, and then freedom. The first sign something was wrong came 20 minutes into the drive. Carlos felt the trailer shift behind him, not drastically but noticeably, like the load had moved. But the manifest said the freight was secured. He checked his mirrors. The trailer looked normal in the dim lights from his cab. 10 minutes later, another shift, more pronounced this time. Carlos felt his Peterbilt pull to the left as weight redistributed inside the trailer. He slowed down and pulled onto the shoulder. This was dangerous. Shifted cargo could cause a rollover. He grabbed his flashlight and climbed out. The night air was humid and thick with the smell of oil refineries and swamp water. Carlos walked around the trailer, checking the doors. Locked. Sealed. He couldn't open them without breaking the seal, and technically that wasn't allowed. But if the cargo was loose enough to affect handling, he had to check. Carlos broke the seal and opened the doors. His flashlight beam swept the interior. The trailer was completely empty. Not a single pallet, not a box, nothing. Just bare floor and walls, clean and empty as if it had just been washed out. "What the hell?" Carlos muttered. He felt the weight shift. Twice. But there was nothing here to shift. He closed the doors, confused and increasingly uneasy. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe fatigue was catching up to him. He climbed back in his cab and pulled onto the highway. 5 minutes later, the trailer shifted again. Hard. Carlos felt the entire rig pull to the right. He gripped the wheel, correcting, keeping the truck stable. In his side mirror, he saw something that made his blood freeze. The trailer was moving. Not rolling with the truck, but moving independently, twisting slightly, like something inside was throwing its weight around. Carlos keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Carlos. I've got a problem with this load. Cargo is shifting severely. I need to pull over and secure it." Static answered him, then a voice, but it wasn't the dispatcher. It was deeper, distorted, like multiple people speaking at once. "The cargo is fine. The cargo is exactly where it needs to be. Keep driving." "Who is this?" "This isn't dispatch. Keep driving, Carlos. You're on your last run. You need to complete it. The cargo must reach Beaumont." Carlos switched off the radio. His heart was hammering. He started looking for an exit, anywhere to pull off and figure out what was happening. But the highway stretched on with no exits, no rest stops, no lights except his own headlights cutting through the darkness. The trailer shifted again, violently. The whole rig swayed. Carlos fought to keep it on the road. In his mirror, he saw the trailer moving more actively now, rocking back and forth like something massive was pacing inside it. He slammed on the brakes, bringing the truck to a stop in the middle of the highway. Dangerous, illegal, but he didn't care. Something was very wrong. Carlos grabbed his flashlight and tire iron, jumped down, and marched to the rear of the trailer. He threw open the doors. Empty. Completely empty, same as before. But as Carlos stood there, staring into the dark interior, he heard sounds. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps, heavy boots on metal floor, walking back and forth inside the empty trailer. "Who's in there?" Carlos shouted, raising his tire iron. "Come out now." The footsteps stopped. Silence for 3 heartbeats. Then a voice from inside the empty trailer. "We're the cargo, Carlos. We're always the cargo on the last runs. The loads they give to drivers who are quitting. We're the ones who quit before you. We're the ones who thought they could just walk away from the road. But the road doesn't let go. It packages you up and ships you out, makes you the freight for the next driver who tries to quit." More voices joined in, dozens of them, all speaking from the empty space. "We're in here. We've been in here, some of us for decades, trapped in the phantom load, the delivery that never ends. We move from truck to truck, driver to driver, always on the way to Beaumont, never arriving." Carlos stumbled backward. This wasn't possible. He looked inside the trailer again, still empty. But the voices continued, and now he could see them in the shadows, shapes that weren't quite there, outlines of human figures, translucent and wrong. "You felt a shift," the voices said. "We're trying to escape. We throw ourselves against the walls, try to tip the trailer, try to make the driver stop. But it never works. We're stuck. And now you will be too. The moment you agreed to take this load, the moment you hooked up to this trailer, you became part of it. This is your last delivery, Carlos, but you're not delivering the cargo. You are the cargo." Carlos ran back to his cab. He had to disconnect from this trailer, had to leave it here and drive away. But when he reached the 5th wheel, the coupling wouldn't release. He pulled the release handle again and again. It didn't move. The trailer was attached to his truck as if they'd been welded together. He climbed in his cab, started the engine, and tried to drive forward without the trailer. The truck moved a few feet, and then the trailer pulled him backward. Not rolling backward, actively pulling like it had its own engine, its own will. Carlos pressed the accelerator. The truck's engine roared, but the trailer was stronger. It dragged him backward, back toward Houston, away from Beaumont. Then it stopped. Carlos sat in his cab, breathing hard, watching the mirrors. The trailer doors were still open, and he could see movement inside now. The phantom shapes were becoming more solid, more visible. Drivers from different eras, all wearing their company uniforms, all with expressions of absolute despair. His radio crackled to life. "You can't fight it," the distorted voice said. "The phantom load chooses its drivers. You're on your last run. That makes you eligible. That makes you vulnerable. The only way to complete this delivery is to become part of it. Step into the trailer, Carlos. Join the cargo. Accept your place. Then we can move forward. Then we can almost reach Beaumont. Almost." "I won't," Carlos said, though no one was listening. "I won't do it." But his door was opening. His legs were moving. He was climbing down from the cab, walking toward the open trailer. even though every part of his mind was screaming to stop. The phantom load was calling to him, pulling at him with a gravity he couldn't resist. The figures inside the trailer reached out with translucent hands. Their mouths moved, speaking in unison. "Welcome to the cargo. Welcome to the last delivery. Welcome to the load that never reaches its destination. You'll drive with us now, Carlos, from truck to truck, driver to driver, forever on the way to Beaumont, forever shifting in the dark, forever trying to escape." Carlos's foot touched the trailer floor. Cold spread through him, starting at his feet and climbing up his legs. He was becoming translucent, becoming phantom, becoming part of the load. He tried to scream, but his voice was already fading, joining the chorus of voices that lived in the empty trailer. The doors closed by themselves. The trailer sealed. And on Highway 90, a Peterbilt 579 sat abandoned, engine running, headlights on, trailer attached. Inside the cab, a half-finished cup of coffee and a letter of resignation addressed to Carlos's employer, never to be sent. By morning, the truck would be gone, towed to some impound lot, the trailer emptied and cleaned. Empty, always empty, until the next driver on their last run accepted a load of general freight from Houston to Beaumont, hooked up to the phantom trailer and felt the cargo shift. And Carlos would be part of that cargo, pacing in the empty darkness with all the other drivers who tried to quit, forever in transit, forever shifting, forever almost arriving at Beaumont but never reaching it. The phantom load always needed more drivers. The road always collected its due. Story 7, The Bridge Between. Samantha had planned this moment for 6 months. Her last delivery, a load of electronics from Portland to Salem, Oregon, would be finished by 3 a.m. She'd already rented an apartment near her daughter's college. No more living in a sleeper cab. No more truck stop showers. No more endless highway. Her Freightliner Cascadia had been her home for 14 years, but home was about to change. The route was simple, I-5 south, straight shot, 95 miles. Samantha left Portland at 12:15 a.m., the city lights fading behind her as she merged onto the interstate. Traffic was light, mostly other trucks and a few cars. The radio played classic country, and for a little while, Samantha let herself feel nostalgic. She'd missed parts of this life. The freedom, the solitude, the endless American landscape rolling by, but not enough to stay. Around 12:50 a.m., she saw signs for a bridge. That was odd. There was no major bridge on this section of I-5. The Willamette River crossing was miles behind her, but there it was, a massive structure rising ahead, spanning what looked like empty space. The road led onto it naturally, no exit before it, no choice but to cross. Samantha slowed down as she approached. The bridge was enormous, far larger than necessary for a 2-lane highway. It was old too, steel beams and rivets that looked like something from the 1930s, and it spanned nothing. She could see that clearly now. On either side of the bridge there was no valley, no river, no gap, just flat land. The bridge crossed absolutely nothing, yet it existed, rising and falling in a long arc over terrain that didn't need crossing. She couldn't turn around. A concrete barrier had appeared behind her, blocking any retreat. Forward was the only option. Samantha took a deep breath and drove onto the bridge. The moment her truck's front wheels touched the bridge surface, everything changed. The sound altered. Her engine noise became muffled, distant, like hearing it underwater. The air pressure shifted, making her ears pop, and the world on either side of the bridge disappeared. Samantha looked out her side windows. Instead of Oregon landscape, there was nothing. Not darkness, not fog, nothing, a void, an absence of existence. The bridge extended through this nowhere, and her truck was the only thing on it. "What is this?" she whispered. Her voice sounded flat, absorbed immediately by the strange air. She kept driving. What choice did she have? The bridge seemed endless. Mile after mile of steel and concrete, perfectly maintained but completely abandoned. No other vehicles, no lights except her own headlights. The nothing on either side pressed close, like a physical presence. Then she saw the figure ahead. standing in the middle of the bridge, right in her lane. A woman in a dress from the 1950s, perfectly still, watching Samantha approach. As the truck got closer, the figure became more distinct. She was young, maybe 25, with hair pinned in victory rolls and red lipstick. She was also translucent, like an image projected onto glass. Samantha hit the brakes, bringing the Cascadia to a stop 20 feet from the figure. She sat there, hands on the wheel, staring. The woman in the vintage dress stared back. Then she spoke, though her mouth didn't move. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You shouldn't be here. This bridge isn't for the living." "What is this place?" Samantha managed to ask. "The bridge between," the woman said. "Between what was and what will be. Between driving and stopping. Between the road and the rest." "You wanted to quit, didn't you? You wanted this to be your last run." "Yes." "Then you're in the right place or the wrong place. Depends on your perspective. The bridge between appears for drivers on their final delivery. It gives them a choice." "What choice?" The woman gestured ahead. Another figure appeared on the bridge, this one a man in a trucker's outfit from the 1980s. Then another and another. The bridge was filling with ghosts, all of them drivers from different eras, all translucent, all watching Samantha with expressions of infinite sadness. "The choice is simple," the woman said. "You can continue forward, cross the bridge completely, reach the other side. If you do, you'll finish your delivery, quit your job, start your new life, but you'll leave the road behind forever, completely. Every memory of driving, every mile you've logged, every sunrise and sunset you've seen from your cab gone. The bridge between takes them as payment for crossing. You'll arrive in Salem with no recollection of ever being a trucker, 14 years erased like they never happened." Samantha felt cold horror creeping through her. "That's insane. I don't want to forget, I just want to stop driving." "That's the cost of quitting," the woman said. "The road invested in you. It gave you experiences, adventures, a life. Now it wants them back. That's what the bridge collects, the memories of the road from drivers who want to leave it. And if I don't cross, if I turn around?" "You can't turn around, but you can stop. Stay here on the bridge between worlds. Never quite done with your last delivery, never quite free, suspended forever in the moment before retirement. Many choose that option." She gestured to the other ghosts. "We're all here, all the drivers who couldn't choose. We exist in the between, not quite on the road, not quite off it." "That's not a choice," Samantha said. "That's torture." "It's preservation," the man in the 1980s trucker outfit said, his voice joining the conversation. "We keep our memories this way. Everything we drove, everyone we met, every mile we covered, it's all here with us. We traded completion for memory. The bridge lets us stay." More drivers appeared, crowding the bridge now. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all ghosts of truckers passed. They moved closer to Samantha's truck, pressing against the windows, their faces desperate and pleading. "Don't cross," they whispered in unison. "Stay with us, keep the memories. The road is who you are. You can't leave it. You shouldn't leave it. Stay between. Stay with us. Stay." Samantha looked ahead. The bridge continued into the nothing, presumably leading eventually to the other side, to Salem, to her daughter, to a new life. But a life without memory of the old one. She'd wake up not knowing who she'd been, what she'd done, where she'd driven. 14 years just gone. She looked behind. The concrete barrier was still there. No retreat. No going back to the life she'd had. And all around her, the ghosts of drivers pressed close, offering the third option, eternal limbo, suspended on the bridge between, never finishing the last delivery, never truly quitting, just existing in the frozen moment of almost done. "I choose," Samantha started to say. But before she could finish, she realized the truth. She'd already chosen. The moment she'd driven onto the bridge, she'd made her choice. The bridge didn't give options, it gave illusions of options. Every driver here had thought they were choosing. But the bridge between didn't let anyone cross. It didn't let anyone leave. It collected drivers, kept them, added them to its ghost army. Samantha felt herself fading. Her hands on the wheel were becoming translucent. The truck around her was dissolving. She was becoming another ghost, Another driver stuck between worlds, another voice telling future drivers to stay, to not cross, to preserve their memories by surrendering their existence. The woman in the 1950s dress smiled sadly. "Welcome to the bridge between. You'll learn to accept it eventually. Most of us do. The ones who don't just fade faster." Samantha tried to scream, tried to gun the engine and force her way across the bridge, but she had no substance anymore. She was memory now, just memory, floating in the nothing, watching the bridge for the next driver who would make their last delivery and find themselves offered a choice that wasn't a choice. Her Freightliner Cascadia sat on the bridge, empty and still. The load of electronics in the trailer would never reach Salem. Samantha's daughter would wonder why her mother never called, never showed up. Eventually, the truck would disappear, absorbed into whatever reality the bridge between existed in, and another driver would start their last run, headed for their final delivery, about to discover a bridge that spanned nothing and collected everything. The bridge between was never on any map. It appeared when it was needed, took what it wanted, and vanished until the next driver dared to quit the road. And the ghosts collected there would whisper to each new arrival about choices and memories and the price of leaving, all while knowing that no one ever truly left. Samantha was among them now, a transparent figure in modern trucker's gear, standing on eternal steel and concrete, watching the nothing, waiting for the next driver, the next almost ending, the next soul to join the between. Story 8. The Radio Frequency. Tom had been hauling refrigerated goods for 19 years, and he was done with all of it. Done with the breakdowns, the traffic, the deadlines, the loneliness. This run, a load of frozen seafood from Boston to Hartford, was contractually his last. He'd signed on with a logistics company for a desk job, scheduling other drivers instead of being one himself. His Volvo VNL, the Ice Queen, would be sold by the end of the week. After tonight, no more road. He left Boston at 11:35 p.m., the refrigeration unit humming steadily at -20 degrees. Highway 84 West was quiet, just a few scattered vehicles and plenty of empty asphalt. Tom had his usual playlist ready, but on impulse he decided to scan the radio instead. One last night of random stations, trucker conversations on the CB, the weird overnight shows that filled dead air. He started with AM radio, spinning through static and fragments of talk shows. Then FM, catching pieces of classic rock and country. Then he moved to the CB, cycling through channels. Channel 19 was dead. Channel 17 had some chatter between two drivers arguing about tire brands. Channel 9, the emergency frequency, was silent as it should be. Then Tom found something on Channel 38 that shouldn't have been possible. A voice, clear and strong, speaking directly. "Last delivery drivers, tuned to frequency 161.475 for important information regarding your retirement from the road." Tom frowned. Channel 38 on CB was rarely used, and the message was bizarre. How would anyone know he was on his last delivery? He grabbed his handheld scanner, a fancy unit he'd bought years ago that could pick up all kinds of frequencies beyond normal CB range. He punched in 161.475 and listened. What came through made his blood run cold. It was his own voice, not a recording but live, speaking in real time. "This is Tom Hennessy in the Ice Queen, northbound on 84. If anyone can hear this, I need help. Something's wrong with my radio. It's showing me things, broadcasting things that aren't happening yet. Please respond." But Tom wasn't transmitting. His mic was hanging on its hook. Yet he heard himself clearly, panic evident in his voice, calling for help on a frequency he'd just tuned to. "That's not me," Tom said aloud. "I didn't say that." His scanner crackled. A different voice, older male with a southern accent. "Son, if you're hearing yourself on that frequency, you need to turn off your radio right now. Don't listen to anything else. That frequency is bad news. It's where the road talks to drivers on their last run, and you don't want to hear what it has to say." "Who is this?" Tom asked into his mic, then realized he was transmitting on the wrong device. He grabbed his scanner's microphone. "This is Tom. Who are you?" "Name's Earl. I drove for 43 years before I figured out how to quit safely." "That frequency you found, 161.475, that's the dead channel. It broadcasts the future, specifically the bad futures, the ones where drivers on their last run don't make it. Turn it off, Tom. Turn it all off and drive in silence." "That doesn't make any sense. Radio frequencies don't show the future." "Regular frequencies don't," Earl agreed. "But the dead channel ain't regular. It's built from all the radio signals that ever went out from trucks, all the distress calls, all the final transmissions, all the voices of drivers who never made it home. It coalesced into something else, something that exists outside normal physics, and it targets drivers on their last runs. Makes them hear what could happen if they're not careful." Tom should have followed Earl's advice, should have turned off the radio and driven in silence, but curiosity and disbelief kept him listening. He turned up the volume on the scanner. His own voice came through again, clearer now. "Lost control around mile marker 67. The rig jackknifed. I'm pinned in the cab. The refrigeration unit ruptured. I can feel the cold spreading. My legs are frozen. Can anyone hear me?" "Please, I'm at mile marker 67. Send help." Tom checked his GPS. Mile marker 53. He was 14 miles from wherever his future self was dying, if this was real, if any of this was real. "It's not real," Tom said firmly. "It's just radio interference, imagination, fatigue." But Earl's voice came back. "It's as real as you make it, son. The dead channel shows possible futures, bad ones. The more you listen, the more likely they become. It's feeding on your attention, using your focus to pull that future into reality. Turn it off, now." Instead, Tom changed the frequency slightly, moving to 161.48. Different voices filled his cab. Other drivers, all in distress, all describing accidents and disasters. A woman whose brakes had failed on a mountain pass. A man whose cargo shifted and caused a rollover. A young driver who fell asleep and hit a bridge support. All of them broadcasting their final moments on the dead channel frequencies. And then Tom heard something that stopped his heart, his daughter's voice. Dad, can you hear me? They said you were in an accident on 84. They said you didn't make it. Dad, please, you promised this was your last run. You promised you'd be at my graduation. Dad," tears blurred Tom's vision. His daughter's graduation was in 2 weeks. He de-promised her. This was why he was quitting, why this was his last run. To be there for her, to finally be a present father instead of an absent driver. "That won't happen," Tom said, voice shaking. "I won't let it happen." "Then turn off the radio," Earl's voice urged. "Stop listening. The more of these futures you hear, the more weight they gain. The dead channel is trying to make one of them real. It feeds on the fear and attention of drivers on their last runs. It's killed more retiring truckers than all the accidents combined. Don't give it power." But Tom couldn't stop. He needed to know what could happen, needed to avoid it. He scanned through more frequencies. 161.45, 161.5, 161.525. Each one showed him different disasters, different ways his last run could end in tragedy instead of triumph. One frequency showed him driving off the road, the Ice Queen plunging into a ravine. Another showed him hitting black ice and colliding with another truck, multiple fatalities. Another showed him having a heart attack at the wheel, the truck drifting into oncoming traffic. The dead channel had hundreds of frequencies, each broadcasting a different nightmare, each one involving Tom's death before he could finish this final delivery. Mile marker 60. Tom was shaking now, sweat pouring down his face despite the cool night. He'd heard his death described in a dozen different ways, seen in his mind how each scenario would play out. The dead channel was in his head now, not just on the radio. "Tom," Earl's voice was fading weak. "I can't maintain contact much longer. The dead channel is too strong. You've listened too long. Please, son, turn it off. Don't end up like Static consumed Earl's transmission. Tom was alone with the dead channel frequencies. His own voice came through on 161.475 again, screaming now. "It's in the cab with me. The thing from the dead channel, it manifested. It's real. Oh God, it's..." The transmission cut off. Tom looked in his rearview mirror. There was something in his sleeper berth. A shape, humanoid but wrong, made of darkness and static and radio interference given form. It was reaching toward him with hands that phased between solid and transparent. Tom screamed and swerved. The Ice Queen's trailer fishtailed. He fought for control, overcorrected, felt the truck beginning to roll. Time slowed. He saw the guardrail approaching, saw the ditch beyond it. Saw exactly how the accident would unfold because he'd heard it described on the dead channel frequencies. He was living one of the futures he'd listened to. The dead channel had made it real. The truck hit the guardrail. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. The world tumbled. Tom felt bones break, felt the cold from the ruptured refrigeration unit spreading through the cab, felt the radio frequencies screaming in triumph as they claimed another driver on his last run. His hand found the radio scanner in the wreckage. Blood made it slippery, but he managed to key the mic. His voice, weak and failing, transmitted on 161.475. "This is Tom Hennessy in the Ice Queen, northbound on 84. If anyone can hear this, I need help. Something's wrong with my radio." He was becoming the warning, the transmission that future drivers would hear. The dead channel had claimed him, turned him into content, another voice in its endless broadcast of disasters. Tom's last thought was of his daughter's graduation, happening 2 weeks in a future he wouldn't see. He de-quit the road, all right, permanently. The dead channel made sure that drivers on their last runs never finished them, trapping them instead in eternal broadcast, forever warning others in a loop that could never be broken. The Ice Queen sat crumpled in the ditch at mile marker 67, exactly where Tom's future self had said it would be. Emergency responders found no survivors, but if they'd had radio scanners tuned to 161.475, they would have heard Tom's voice, still broadcasting, still calling for help, still trapped in the dead channel's endless feed of last deliveries that never reached their destinations. Earl heard it, somewhere in his own truck on his own highway. Another driver lost. Another voice added to the dead channel. He changed his frequency and drove in silence, hoping his own last delivery would be different, knowing it probably wouldn't be. The dead channel was always broadcasting, always waiting for drivers on their final runs, always hungry for new voices. Story 9, the parallel highway. Maria had earned this retirement. 26 years of cross-country hauling, through every kind of weather, every type of cargo, every imaginable challenge. Her Kenworth W900L, La Rienne, had logged over 2 million miles with her behind the wheel. But tonight's delivery from Nashville to Memphis would be the last. She'd bought a small house on a lake in Tennessee. Her fishing boat was already docked there, waiting. After tonight, the only thing Maria would drive was a pickup truck to the marina. She left Nashville at 10:45 p.m., Highway 40 West stretching ahead like a ribbon of promise. The weather was clear, traffic minimal, everything perfect for a smooth final run. Maria had driven this route so many times she could probably do it blindfolded. Every exit, every curve, every landmark was familiar. That's why she noticed when things started changing. The first difference was subtle. A billboard that had advertised a hotel chain for the past 5 years now showed something else. A truck stop called Final Mile Plaza. Maria frowned. She hadn't heard about any new truck stops opening on this route. She made a mental note to check it on her return trip, then remembered there wouldn't be a return trip. This was the last time she'd drive this highway. The second difference was less subtle. An exit ramp that should have led to a town called Kingston appeared on the right, but the sign said Kingsville instead. Close, but wrong. Maria had taken that exit dozens of times. It was definitely Kingston. Then she passed a rest stop that shouldn't exist. The nearest rest area was 30 miles ahead, but there one sat brightly lit, with cars and trucks parked in neat rows. Maria considered stopping but decided against it. Something about it felt wrong, like a photograph that had been slightly altered. Mile marker 172. Maria noted it and prepared for the curve ahead, a long sweeping left that she'd driven hundreds of times. But when she reached the curve, it went right instead. The road physically curved in the opposite direction from what it should have. Maria pulled over, heart pounding. She grabbed her phone and pulled up a map. According to GPS, she was exactly where she should be on Highway 40. The route showed no curve here at all. The highway was straight through this section. But Maria could see the curve had just driven through it. The physical reality didn't match the map. She got back on the highway, driving more slowly now, watching everything carefully. The road had changed. Somehow, impossibly, she was on a different version of Highway 40. The differences multiplied. Towns she'd never heard of appeared on exit signs. Landmarks were in wrong positions or missing entirely. A bridge crossed a river that shouldn't exist. Maria tried to exit, to get off this strange parallel highway and find her way back to the real one. But every exit ramp led to roads she didn't recognize, towns that weren't on any map, intersections that made no geographic sense. And whenever she tried to turn around and go back to Nashville, the road itself prevented her. Lanes would merge, construction barriers would appear, detours would force her forward, always west, always toward Memphis, or toward whatever Memphis existed in this version of reality. Her CB radio crackled. "Westbound Kenworth, this is eastbound Peterbilt. You seeing what I'm seeing? This ain't the right highway." Maria grabbed her mic, relieved to hear another confused voice. "Copy that, eastbound." "I thought I was going crazy. Where are we?" "Parallel highway," the other driver said, voice tight with fear. "I've been stuck on it for 3 hours. Every time I try to get off, it brings me back. And the weird part, according to my GPS, I'm exactly where I should be, but everything's wrong, everything's just slightly off." "What's the parallel highway?" "It's a legend. Old-timers talk about it. A version of whatever highway you're on that exists next to the real one, like a ghost copy. It appears for drivers on their last runs and traps them. You drive forever, never quite reaching your destination, always almost there, but the exit never comes." Maria felt sick. "How do we get back to the real highway?" "I don't think we can," the other driver said. "I think this is where we are now. This is where drivers end up when they try to quit. The parallel highway keeps them driving forever. Last delivery that never ends." Maria looked around desperately. The highway looked real. The asphalt was solid under her tires. The signs were physical and readable, but every detail was slightly wrong, like she was driving through a photocopy of reality instead of reality itself. She passed a mile marker, 172, again. The same marker she'd passed 10 minutes ago. The highway was looping, or she was somehow traveling the same section over and over, or distance had lost meaning here. Other trucks appeared around her, dozens of them, all driving west in a loose convoy. Maria recognized some of the models, old Freightliners from the 90s, ancient Macs from the 70s, even a few trucks from the 50s that belonged in museums. They were all weathered and worn, like they'd been driving for decades without stopping. She tried to radio them. "This is westbound Kenworth to the convoy. Does anyone copy?" Multiple voices responded at once, overlapping, desperate. "We're stuck. Can't get off. Been driving for years. Send help. Parallel highway won't let us go. Last delivery never ends. Please, someone help us." Maria tried her phone, no signal. She tried her satellite GPS unit. It showed her position, but the map around that position was blank, like she existed in a void. She was somewhere the satellites could detect, but the world didn't acknowledge. The convoy was closing in around her now, boxing her in. She tried to slow down, but her truck wouldn't respond. The accelerator was stuck, or her leg was frozen, or the truck itself had decided it would maintain 60 miles per hour regardless of what Maria wanted. She was a passenger now in La Riene, watching the parallel highway scroll by endlessly. A figure appeared on the roadside, then another, then hundreds, all standing motionless, watching the convoy pass. Maria recognized them as she drove by: drivers, former truckers, all wearing their company gear, all standing with expressions of absolute hopelessness. These were the ones who'd given up, who'd abandoned their trucks and tried to walk off the parallel highway. Now they just stood there, frozen, watching others make the same journey they'd failed to complete. "Don't stop," a voice crackled over the CB. "Whatever you do, don't stop driving. The moment you stop, you become one of them. The watchers, the ones who quit. The parallel highway freezes them there forever." Maria's fuel gauge was dropping. Quarter tank. She'd need to stop eventually. But there were no fuel stations on the parallel highway, or if there were, they were parallel fuel stations that sold parallel fuel that wouldn't work in real engines. The road ahead split. One path continued west, the parallel highway stretching into infinite distance. The other path led to a gap, a tier in reality where Maria could see through to the real Highway 40. Normal traffic moved there, regular trucks and cars on the real road, unaware of the parallel version existing alongside them. A massive sign hung above the split: "Choose your retirement." Maria understood the choice. She could continue on the parallel highway, driving forever, never stopping, never dying, never reaching Memphis, just the eternal last delivery. Or she could drive through the tier in reality, return to the real highway, and risk whatever consequences came with trying to escape. The convoy around her all stayed on the parallel highway, too afraid or too resigned to try the tier. But Maria had spent 26 years refusing to give up when challenges arose. She wasn't about to start now. She yanked the wheel hard right toward the tier in reality. Lurks resisted, fighting her, trying to stay on the safe parallel route. Maria threw all her weight into the steering wheel, muscles straining, screaming with effort. The truck's front wheels touched the tier. Reality fragmented around her. She saw both worlds simultaneously: the parallel highway with its convoy of eternal drivers, and the real Highway 40 with its normal traffic. She existed in both places at once, splitting, tearing, being pulled apart by competing realities. Then she was through. Lurks' wheels hit real asphalt with a thud that felt like landing after a fall. The convoy vanished. The parallel highway was gone. Maria was on Highway 40, the real Highway 40, with regular mile markers and familiar exits and towns that existed on maps. She pulled over at the next rest stop, hands shaking so badly she could barely steer. When she checked her GPS, she'd lost 2 hours. It was now 1:15 a.m., but she'd only been driving for what felt like 30 minutes. The parallel highway had stolen time along with reality. Maria considered turning around, canceling this delivery, refusing to finish this last run. But she realized that's probably what the parallel highway wanted. Drivers who quit before completing their final delivery would be easy targets next time, already weakened by failure. She took a deep breath, started Lurks' engine, and pulled back onto Highway 40. She drove carefully, watching for any signs of the road changing, ready to fight if the parallel highway tried to claim her again. But it didn't. She reached Memphis at 3:47 a.m., completed her delivery, and parked Lurks for the last time. As Maria walked away from her truck, she looked back once. In the chrome of Lurks' exhaust stack, she saw a reflection of the parallel highway, still there, still running alongside reality, still waiting for drivers on their last runs. She'd escaped it once. She knew that she'd been lucky. Other drivers wouldn't be. The parallel highway was patient. It had all the time in all the parallel worlds to wait for the next retiring trucker, the next last delivery, the next driver who would make the wrong choice and end up driving forever through a world that was almost right but never quite real. Maria walked into her new life without looking back again. Behind her, in a reflection only visible from certain angles, the convoy rolled on, the parallel highway stretched endlessly, and the frozen watchers stood by the roadside, trapped forever in the moment they decided to quit. Story 10. The Final Way Station. Kevin had counted down the days with marks on his calendar, like a prisoner marking time until release. 15 years of hauling everything from furniture to hazardous materials, and it all ended tonight. This delivery, automotive parts from Detroit to Cleveland, was the last entry in his logbook. His Mac Anthem would be sold back to the company tomorrow morning. Kevin had already packed up his personal items from the cab. After tonight, he was a free man. He left Detroit at 11:15 p.m., Highway 75 South clear and dry. The weather was cooperating, the truck ran smooth, the load was secure. Everything pointed to a perfect final run. Kevin allowed himself to relax, to actually enjoy the drive instead of treating it like work. Music played softly from his phone. The miles ticked by steadily. Freedom approached with every passing marker. At midnight, he saw the way station. That was strange. Kevin had driven this route dozens of times and knew every way station on Highway 75. There wasn't one in this location. But there it sat, all lights blazing, a massive facility that looked brand new, with electronic signs reading all commercial vehicles must enter. Kevin frowned but signaled to exit. Ignoring a way station, even an unfamiliar one, could cost him his commercial license, and he didn't want legal problems following him into retirement. He guided his Mac Anthem down the ramp and into the way station approach. The facility was enormous, far larger than any way station Kevin had ever seen. Multiple scales, dozens of inspection bays, buildings that looked more like an airport terminal than a roadside checkpoint. But despite its size, the station was completely empty. No other trucks, no DOT officers, no staff visible anywhere. Kevin pulled onto the scale. The digital display lit up with numbers, but they were wrong. Instead of showing his truck's weight, the display read, career weight, 15 years, 847,293 miles, 1,247 deliveries, 16 violations, 3 accidents. He stared at the display. Those numbers were accurate, eerily accurate. His exact career statistics, information that would require accessing multiple databases to compile. How did a way station scale know all that? A speaker crackled to life. Van Marsh, Mac Anthem, final delivery. Please proceed to Inspection Bay 7 for mandatory retirement evaluation. What? Kevin grabbed his CB mic, then realized there was no one to call. He tried his cell phone. No signal. The way station was surrounded by some kind of dead zone. The speaker repeated, proceed to Inspection Bay 7. Failure to comply will result in permanent detention. Kevin didn't like the sound of permanent detention, but he also didn't see a way out. The exit ramp back to the highway was blocked by barriers that had appeared while he was on the scale. Forward through the way station was the only option. He drove slowly to Bay 7, a massive garage door that rolled open as he approached. Inside was a pristine inspection area lit by harsh fluorescent lights. A figure in a DOT uniform stood waiting, clipboard in hand. Kevin parked and climbed down from his cab. As he approached the inspector, something felt wrong. The man was too perfect, uniform too clean, posture too straight, face too symmetrical, like a computer's idea of what an inspector should look like rather than an actual person. "Mr. Marsh," the inspector said in a voice that had no accent, no regional characteristics, nothing human. "Welcome to the Final Way Station. This facility processes all commercial drivers attempting to retire from the road. We must evaluate whether you've met the requirements for separation." Requirements. "I've completed my contract. I'm legally allowed to quit. Legal requirements are not our concern. We evaluate the road's requirements. You've driven for 15 years. The highway has invested significant resources in you, infrastructure, fuel, maintenance facilities, the entire support system that allowed your career to exist. The Final Way Station determines whether you've repaid that investment." The inspector gestured to a screen on the wall. It lit up with images from Kevin's career. His first delivery in a beat-up old Freightliner, his upgrade to better trucks, his routes across America, his stops at truck stops and rest areas. Every moment of his 15-year career played out in rapid succession. "The road gave you this life," the inspector said. "Now we calculate what you've given back." Numbers began appearing on the screen. Fuel taxes paid, toll fees, money spent at truck stops, miles driven contributing to road wear. The calculation was complex, involving factors Kevin didn't understand, weights and measures of intangible things like wear patterns and infrastructure usage. Finally, a total appeared. Debt to highway, 437 units. "What does that mean?" Kevin asked. "You owe the road 437 units of additional service. At current rates, that equals approximately 8 more years of driving before retirement is authorized." "That's insane. I don't owe the road anything. I paid for everything I used." "You paid the monetary costs. We're discussing the existential debt. The road existed before you, will exist after you, and claims a portion of all who use it professionally. 8 more years, Mr. Marsh, then you may retire." Kevin backed toward his truck. "I'm leaving. You can't keep me here." Departure unauthorized. Drivers who attempt to retire with outstanding debt are detained until the debt is satisfied. The inspection bay door slammed shut. Kevin ran to it and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. He looked around wildly for another exit. There were doors leading deeper into the facility, but no way out. "What is this place?" Kevin shouted. "What are you?" "The final way station exists at the intersection of road and reality. We are the custodians of the highway's interests. Many drivers reach this station on their final runs. Most agree to continue driving to satisfy their debt. A few refuse. They remain here." The inspector gestured to one of the internal doors. "Would you like to see?" The door opened automatically. Kevin didn't want to look, but something compelled him forward. Beyond the door was a warehouse space, vast and dimly lit, and it was full of trucks, hundreds of them, thousands, all parked in perfect rows, all different makes and models spanning decades, all silent and empty. "The detained fleet," the inspector explained. "Drivers who refuse to satisfy their debt. Their trucks remain here preserved, while the drivers themselves," he pointed upward. Kevin looked up and immediately wished he hadn't. The ceiling of the warehouse was lined with capsules, like some nightmare version of a storage facility. Through the transparent walls of each capsule, he could see a driver, suspended, frozen, eyes open but unseeing, trapped in a moment between heartbeats. "They exist in temporal suspension," the inspector said. "Not alive, not dead, not free, not enslaved. Just held until such time as the road chooses to release them. Most have been here for decades, some for over a century. The road is patient. It can wait forever for its debt to be paid." Kevin felt his knees weaken. This couldn't be real. It was a hallucination, a nightmare, some kind of elaborate hoax, but the trucks looked real. The suspended drivers looked real. The cold certainty in the inspector's inhuman voice sounded real. "I'll drive the 8 years, Kevin heard himself say. "I'll pay the debt. Excellent decision." The inspector made a note on his clipboard. "However, there is an additional consideration, the final delivery discount." "What's that?" Drivers on their final run often develop the psychological condition known as short-timer syndrome, reduced attention, increased risk-taking, eagerness to finish that compromises safety. This represents a liability to the road. To compensate, we impose a final delivery discount of 50% efficiency. Your 8 years of debt becomes 16 years when calculated at final delivery performance levels. 16 years. I'll be 63 years old. If you survive that long, yes. Of course, any violations, accidents, or safety infractions during those 16 years will add to your debt. Most drivers accumulate an additional 5 to 10 years before they truly satisfy their obligation. Kevin realized the trap. He'd never escape. The final way station would keep adding debt, keep finding reasons to extend his servitude to the road. He'd die behind the wheel, still owing the highway, still trapped. "No," Kevin said firmly. "I won't agree to this. You can't force me to drive." "True," the inspector agreed. "We cannot force you, we can only detain you." He gestured to the warehouse of capsules. "A space has already been prepared for you." Kevin ran. He didn't know where he was running, just away, deeper into the final way station's maze of corridors and rooms. Behind him, he heard the inspector's unhurried footsteps. No rush. Where could Kevin go? The station was sealed. He burst through a door and found himself in a room full of logbooks. Millions of them, stacked floor to ceiling, every page filled with entries. These were the records of every driver who'd ever passed through the final way station, every delivery logged, every mile recorded, every debt calculated. Kevin grabbed a logbook at random. The name inside, Robert Chen. The entries dated back to 1987. The last entry was from 2004, noting arrival at the final way station and decision to accept extended service. Kevin grabbed another logbook. Sarah Williams, career spanning 1995 to 2019, final entry identical, arrival at station, acceptance of debt. None of the logbooks showed anyone leaving. Everyone who came to the final way station either agreed to drive forever or entered suspension. There was no third option, no escape, no retirement. The inspector appeared in the doorway. "You cannot run from your debt, Mr. Marsh. The road always collects what it's owed." Kevin looked around desperately and saw it. A window, the first he'd seen in this facility. Through it, he could see Highway 75, the real highway with normal traffic flowing. He was so close to the real world. If he could just break through, he grabbed a heavy logbook and hurled it at the window. The glass shattered. Alarms blared. Kevin didn't hesitate. He jumped through the window, fell 10 feet to the pavement, rolled, and ran toward the highway. Behind him, the final way station's lights blazed brighter, and he heard that inhuman voice over loudspeakers. "Debt evasion in progress. Subject Kevin Marsh is now classified as a fugitive from highway obligation. All stations alerted. Detain on site." Kevin reached the highway and stuck out his thumb, desperately hoping someone would stop. A truck pulled over, an old Peterbilt driven by a woman with kind eyes. "Need a lift?" "Yes, please, He saw her uniform. Her eyes weren't kind. They were empty like the inspector's. She smiled, revealing too many teeth. "Kevin Marsh, you're wanted at the final way station. Please climb in, I'll take you back." Kevin ran. More trucks stopped, more drivers offered rides, all with those empty eyes. The entire highway had become an extension of the final way station, all working to bring him back, to force him to pay his debt. He ran until his lungs burned, until his legs gave out, until he collapsed on the shoulder of Highway 75. Through blurring vision, he saw his Mac Anthem approaching, driving itself, no one in the cab. It pulled up beside him and the door opened. "Resume your route," a voice said from the truck's speakers. "Complete your final delivery, then proceed to the next dispatch, and the next, and the next. The road owns you, Kevin, it always will. Drivers don't retire, they just drive until there's nothing left to drive with." Kevin climbed into his truck because what else could he do? His hands found the steering wheel. His foot found the accelerator. The Mac Anthem pulled back onto Highway 75, headed toward Cleveland, toward the final delivery that would never truly be final. Behind him, the final way station faded from view, but Kevin knew it was always there, always waiting, always calculating debt for every driver who thought they could quit the road. He drove through the night, tears streaming down his face, knowing that he'd drive through countless other nights for years or decades until the highway finally decided he'd paid enough. If that day ever came, his retirement was canceled. His freedom was forfeit. The final way station had measured his worth and found him wanting. Kevin drove on and on and on forever.